Franklin Ruff here, and what I'm going to be talking about on this video is being an ISTJ and worship. Previously, I talked about being an ISTJ and being a pastor, and eventually I'm going to do a part 2 of that. But today I wanted to talk about worship and how ISTJs, what worship appeals to them and how we worship. And just to understand that each temperament has different elements of worship that are important to them. For instance, our NF brothers and sisters are going to more than likely want some sort of emotional connection in their worship, and that's fine because that is necessary. Our NT brothers and sisters are going to want to be able to ask those questions, and the worship is going to have to stimulate them mentally as well as maybe emotionally, but it's not going to be as important to them. When we look at SPs in worship, they're going to generally follow along the same lines as SJs, but it has to, in terms of meaning for an SP, they don't need all the flash and the sub. The best example I can think of this is I was watching a video by SP Spaz on faith and type, and one of the things he brought up is that he was sitting in a church, and the church had all of this elaborate stained glass, and it was this expensive building, and his whole thought process is you could have taken that money and done some better things with it, so you want to take that into consideration. Now, for me as an SJ, when it comes to worship has, first of all, must be centered on God. God must be the center of the worship experience. Everything that we do needs to come back to God. Now, of course, as an SJ, one of the things that I like to see within the worship is some order and some structure. I like the liturgy. Now, of course, as a Baptist, I didn't grow up in a environment where the liturgy was stressed as much as had I grown up as an Episcopalian or a Catholic or an Anglican. But I like that order and structure in my worship. I like to know where things are going to happen. Now, is there room for spontaneity within that? And I would say yes. I would say that not only is there room, that there must be the openness for the allowing of the Holy Spirit to allow for spontaneity, to allow for things to change from time to time. Well, one of the things that I like to say as a pastor and as an ISTJ is that the bulletin that is printed, that's a blueprint. And as often as possible, we should follow that blueprint. But sometimes God is going to lead us in a different direction, and we have to be open to the spontaneity. So I'm comfortable with that. But for the most part, I want to be able to say that this is how the worship is going to go. Now, I understand that from other standpoints of personality that that's hard to deal with. My SP brothers and sisters say, no, I want to do something totally and completely different. The thing I would say to that is yes, but when you do it totally and completely different and you continue to do it totally and completely different, then what happens is you're basically doing it the same. You're just doing it a different way now. So order and structure. I like the liturgy. But once again, it doesn't matter to me what your temperament is when it comes to worship, when it comes to praise. That must be centered on God. Must be. God has to be the central figure within a worship. If he is not, then it's not true worship. It's a concert or a party. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say on this in terms of how I view it, because it's just really plain and simple and straightforward. I like order, I like structure, and I like for God to be the central part of a worship service. Now, I would welcome any questions or comments that you all would want to make in terms of other things that you might want to know about me as an ISTJ and as a pastor and leading worship. I believe that because I do know and understand personality, that the worship should be designed to appeal to each of the temperaments in some way, if at all possible. And so I'm open to that. Again, like I said, I'm open to the spontaneity of worship and the changing of things as the Holy Spirit so leads us, because the Holy Spirit does sometimes in the middle of a service say, okay, you're going right, I want you to turn left, and we have to be open to doing that. And so I'm open to that. I'm open to having worship services that appeal not only to the heart, but to the head as well. So connecting head and heart. And that's where you get your connection between your NT and your NF. You're connecting the head and the heart. But within that, I do want an overarching structure. I just believe that there is a right way to do things. Now I am open to the fact that over time that right way can change. So that's where I am. Please post any comments or questions that you might have, and I will attempt to answer them. May God bless you. And that's what I have to say about ISTJs and worship. You're all together.